Hello everyone, Mr. Delvin here. Today I'm going to be showing you some tips and tricks. This has been requested a few times actually over the years. I just never bothered doing any of these. Some of the things I'm going to be talking about are probably things that you're already aware of. Maybe you do it unintentionally, or maybe there'll be things that you're like, oh, I didn't know I could do that. Some of the things I'm talking about are going to be a little more technical. It's not going to be your standard YouTube video. Oh, how to make an unwritable base. Stuff like that. No, that's not what I'm talking about. This is more focused towards the heavy PvP crowd on small drives, mega drives, or maybe your solo player out there in Ark. So I'm going to start in a random order on creature or on a situation. So if it looks all over the place, do let me know in the comments below. So I'm gonna start with like my favorite unit, which is the Reaper. And Reapers are probably one of the most agile creatures in the game. It's probably one of my favorite creatures in the game. And a lot of times people ask me if how can I build my Reaper? How can I what point should I put into my Reaper? And it's really that applies to every other creature in the game. But when it comes specifically to Reapers, it really depends on what do you want your Reaper to do, right? A lot of times in raids, you want to have Reapers for certain purposes, either for taking down air units or for go toe-to-toe against Paracers, Rexes, and Gigas, some instances. So it really depends on what you want to do. So I'm going to be showing you what I have here. I'm going to start with like the level 5 clone. There we go. So the level 5 clone is mostly, I've seen a lot of mega tribes now use it. It's mostly for anti-air and Greaves. So every time you see a tribe bring some low-level Reapers, it's like, why is that bringing a low-level Reaper? They're mostly specifically for that, for taking down Pteranodons, RGs, Quetzals, Petros, you name it, right? So they're like very inexpensive. That's like around 2,000 charts per clone. So it's like super easy to make a large number of these just for them to like serve our purpose of being mostly anti-air and maybe like knock out certain dinos here and there. They're already tanky enough to, because they are more reduction that they already possess, so they'll be able to get their job done very quickly. Now these are probably the ones that you'll see a lot the most in most battles. I also personally like to have a slightly higher level. I think this one is like 5,000 charts. It just gives me a little more stamina and a little more HP, so I can put more points to movement speed. So usually the way I level my level 5 clones are more towards the movement speed, stamina, and less the HP. Like I don't really care too much about the HP when it comes to like low level Reapers, because I want to still be able to be mobile and have enough stamina. And in the past, when I had to deal with level 5 clones, I had to deal with like clones that only had like 500 HP already level, so it's like I couldn't really do anything. So most of my points really go into the stamina. I want to have a little bit of movement speed. If I can get 120 movement speed on a level 5 clone, that would be ideal for me. That way I can like get out of most situations. Usually you really want to get to like 10k HP, and that's it. Everything else is like really up to you. Sometimes you may even want to put weight, because you have to deal with grapplers, which I'm gonna I'll talk about that later on in the video. And then there is your what I call anti-grief clone, anti-grief Reapers. And a lot of times when a griefer shows on a server, my home server, could be like Ragnarok and Island, you name it, right? You deal with like players with high movement speed. So a lot of times you want to have a Reaper that's mostly focused around high melee, more speed. So this is kind of a normal build where ideally you want your points to be around 20k HP. Ideally you want to get to 120, 140 plus movement speed, and then everything else is melee, so you can like break any 800 plus durability armor. Same thing here. I think I have a high level clone. It's gonna be filled with that purpose. I think I have one here with the same stats that I want. So here's one of the ones I'm talking about. 140 movement speed, 20k HP, and everything else goes into melee. And these are mostly for me to deal with griefers, players that just come into a server and they can run very fast. A lot of times they don't bring Pteranodon, so 140 movement Reaper will be able to catch up to a 200 plus movement speed player. So it's the easiest thing that I can use to deal with one of those players. And that's pretty much it when it comes to like stats that I usually put in a Reaper. There's also your high HP Reapers, which I think a lot of you have seen before. Mostly the HP Reapers are mostly there for soaking as much damage as you can while you try to C-spin things away, right? So if there's like Gigas being thrown at you, you should be able to tank enough damage just to deal with them. But once again, every time you use a Reaper, you highly depend on its ability to be mobile. So you want any of the Reapers, you want to have them around 120 movement speed, 115. Anything that's not 100. So anything above that will make your Reaper much more useful in combat. So certain technical things that you can do with Reapers. First of all, everyone knows about the range attack, which can slow pretty much enemy dinos, and it can also bring down flyers, force them to land. So another thing with Reaper is that you can do a C-spinning attack mid-air, although this only seems to work on live servers rather than single player. So you just run into a ledge and you can do C-spin mid-air. This only works while you're falling, and you have to press the key to spin mid-air. Another thing about this, what we call the C-spin on PC, is that you can actually direct where something can get knocked back to. For example, when it comes to this nameless, I can force the knockback into my left side, and if you see this cursor here, this cursor tends to disappear when you turn left or you turn right, but it will still direct where your target can go. It's not very accurate, but every time you C-spin something, it will go the direction where you want to C-spin. You can try this with Karkino here. Actually, in every battle, what I like to do is when I see a target, usually my mentality is I want to slow it first. I want to slow the target first, and then I want to C-spin it. Usually how I go about things. We can do it here with the Skarkino here. I will slow it, and usually if I want to push it to our turrets, I will run right behind it, C-spin it, and we move to where kind of my cursor is pointed to. It's not 100% accurate, but it will. It's one of the situations where you can like C-spin a racer into your turrets and then immediately slow it after it's been C-spin. Usually the way I go about using Reapers. Another thing that you can do is cancel a jump. So there's a time where like you press the key to jump and you want to cancel it. All you need to do is just either press any other key, left click, range attack, or C-spin to cancel your jump. So assume someone grapples me and I can't move. I immediately dismount my Reaper, bury it, whistle it, and then I move away. And then I run. And what will happen is that the Reaper has a hidden ability to follow you. I assume that that's an enemy Reaper following me, right? But yeah. And I'm like, oh shit, I'm running, but I need my Reaper to come back. So the Reapers will actually follow you while they barrel. So let me do it again. Since someone grapples me, I can't move. Immediately dismount, bury it, whistle it, and then I run. And my Reaper will follow me, regardless. And that's how I usually tend to get my Reapers out of any situation. That's like the best thing you can do when somebody grapples you and you have like, okay, I have to dismount because otherwise I'm gonna die to turrets. So that's something that you might want to practice over and over. It's like something you have to like do really, really quickly. Otherwise, you will probably die to a turret or to another player. Alright guys, I'm gonna talk to you really quickly about Plan C and how Plan C can be used to counter pretty much almost every medium-sized dino and pretty much almost every flyer in the game. Here's a good example on a raid I have one of the Scorcher I was defending at the time, and as you can see, I'm using Plan C to knock out the driver out of this tech tappy. So every time this tech tappy will come out in the air, I will pull out Plan C to force the tech tappy to be knocked out. And what happens is when Plan C hits has a large splash damage, and the splash damage or the charge damage has a large AoE. So every time I would hit, so every time a tech tappy or a rock droid is near it, it will force the driver to dismount. So it's not very complicated. Plan C is pretty much an unlimited, one of those free items in the game. All you really need is the seed and fertilizer, so you can have an unlimited number of Plan C. And Plan C has two modes. On PC would be left click and right click. Left click makes the Plan C as you is like normal draw. It will just explode at impact. Plan C does not have a timer, so you can draw it as far as possible from a long distance. It will not explode until it hits the ground or it hits a target or hits another dino. And then it has another mode with right click, in which it will bounce for a few seconds and it will detonate after it first hits the ground or hits a dino or a structure. So you can delay for a few seconds when you want the Plan C to hit to explode. And it's not very complete. I prefer using this when I'm like running away from Terracinos. Every time I get chased by Terracino or an RG or a Griffin, I just throw the Plan C on the ground, and anything behind me, as I keep running, will get dismounted, or will go into this this state in which it is blinded by the Plan C. So that allows me to escape, run, reposition to another target. And I've considered this probably as of right now, probably the most useful or the best counter against tech tappies and tech rock drakes. As long as you have Plan C, as long as you have a good amount of Plan C, you don't have to worry about tech tappies for a while. And yeah, it's the best thing you can do right now against those kind of dinosaurs, especially Megalosaurus is an operation, Terracinos, you name it. So Tetrax is one of those creatures that I've loved that are back in the meta. It's mostly useful against Gigas, Reapers, sometimes Basilisk. And this is because of the insane range, and combined with a ramp that's usually used for Bassies, you can improve the accuracy and also cover a lot more terrain, have a lot more vision of what's going on around you with a Tetrax, so you're able to hit the Gigas from the high ground compared to a Tech Tappy that sometimes could be countered by Plan C, by Reapers these days. So Tetrax will gives you a safe approach at dealing with the Gigas specifically, and this is probably much more useful. Could be much more useful in consoles when you have to deal with Gigas all the time. But as you can see, I'm using Spyglass in this situation to improve the accuracy of my Tetrax and able to hit these Gigas from a certain distance so they don't bite our racers as they're pushing the enemy line. It doesn't have the tech damage does not affect structures because it got nerfed a couple patches ago. So even though you see the tech damage doing damage to dinos, it will not affect the structures. So it's very useful, very safe against Gigas, Reapers, etc. You name it. Tethering is the ability to make a dino return to another dino. In case you die, you get picked. or something happens, you get disconnected, and then Dino will return safely. So this happens a lot in RPP combat when you're like trying to pick someone of their parasite, of their Reaper, of their Dino, you name it, right? But a lot of times, when you're trying to pick someone, maybe you get picked or you get killed by a turret. And what happens if you didn't tether your Dino? It will stay there, and it will get killed, or you get killed while you're riding your RG, Pteranodon, you name it, and then you're relying on someone. Oh, please whistle my Dino. I got killed. Oh, please whistle my Dino. In so many instances in Ark, I'm pretty sure a lot of you have run into a situation which you're like, oh, I just died. Please, someone whistle my Dino. And this can either work with any land or any air creature, and it's really simple. And a lot of people already know this, but you have to constantly remind them. And I have a situation in which where I grab an air creature, and this usually mostly is done with tech tappy, so they don't get picked off. So all I do is get on another Dino and whistle my RG. So my RG in this case will follow my Parasaur. Sometimes with Griffins it will be a little bugged out because the Griffin will start flying and fly right above them. So what you can do in this situation, if you don't want your RG or your fly to start flying right away, is change the follow distance. I'm going to change the follow distance to this to highest, and I'm whistle my flyer again, and it will not move. It will stay there. So I can mount it and get in there right away and go do my PvP. Now let's say, and what will happen if I get pegged or I get killed by a turret and dismount and I'm not there anymore? What will my RG do? Well, my RG will return to its original target that was following. And that's pretty much how tethering works. It's just very simple. You just gotta make your Dino follow another one and it will return. And this, you can do that with a land Dino, you can do that with an air Dino, a water creature. So long as you can mount it, you can tether it. Alright guys, let me talk to you really quickly about rock drakes. There's pretty much two different types of rock drakes you can build. There's your standard tech rock drake for using the tech saddle during raids, which is like 20k HP with I like the 2000 stamina plus, but it's mostly like 2000 stamina and then 20,000 HP, and then you add more HP onto it. And then there's your regular weight drake, which is maybe around 2000 weight, 1000 stam, and only for farming element. And you can do a variation of that, which is to look for Reaper Queens. And you heavily rely on the saddle when you're like going out there doing any other things like looking for Reaper Queens or getting more Rock Drake eggs. You heavily rely on the saddle, so you want a good saddle with 100 armor at least, or 80 armor, anything around that number. So another thing really quickly, dragons are very straightforward, although they can get very glitchy during lag, especially when you go into climbing mode and you just climb into things by accident. So on PC it would be right click to go into climbing mode, disengage from climbing mode. So what I'm show you is something you probably already do. You just jump and you immediately go into climbing mode, into glide mode. PC will be shift. And it's very straightforward. You'll start gliding down as you go. But there's a thing you can do to continue gliding, which I call a double glide, and is the ability to dive mid-air and cancel it. So let's go into glide mode. I'm going to dive into this target, cancel my glide mid-air, and dive again. So with this you can actually go even further. However, when you do the double glide, as you can see, I can dive into another target. So I'm gonna do the dive once. So let's see, I wanna go all the way across this bridge. I dive here, and oh my god, I'm losing momentum. I'm going down too quickly, so I wanna keep gliding. So do this, cancel, and keep gliding further. Very straightforward, and that's how you can continue gliding if you're in a hurry. Another thing that you can do is do a way to continue going super fast and glide at the same time, and for that you're gonna need to be able to land. So let's see if I can do this here. I want to go further, so I'm gonna glide, and I'm gonna hit the ground here, dive, press the space, and immediately go into gliding mode again. And I can keep doing this over and over again, so long as I can keep gliding. So as long as I can hit the ground, I mean. And that way, if you're going to you're going somewhere, you need to go somewhere really quickly, you just glide, hit the ground, jump again, and you now have the ability to dive and do anything else once again, and you just keep going this way over and over until you reach your targets. So glide here, dive, jump, and just keep going and going. So you're pretty much just bouncing as you glide, and it's very, 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 very useful in situations where you just need to get away from something really quickly. However, you have to keep an eye on your stamina, as that consumes a lot of stamina since you're diving and gliding all over the place. Alright. Another thing I wanted to add with rock drakes is so people have been asking me how is that I gather black pearls on aberration, or how do I do oil without any difficulties in aberration. So I'm actually going to show this from a live server. This is on an official conquest, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go all the way down to where usually people gather black pearls and oil. And what I do is I go in a stealth mode. So what you want to do usually is avoid killing the rock drakes and avoid aggroing them, because the moment you aggro a rock drake, pretty much every single rock drake would aggro you. So the question is, how do you gather black pearls where I have to kill them? So what happened is that when you go in a stealth mode, not a single dino will actually aggro on you. So you can gather in peace, and so long as you don't dismount your rock drake, you will be fine. So as you can see, I'm gonna run straight to these rock drakes and literally stand in front of them, and literally they will not aggro me so long as I'm in stealth mode. The moment I come out of stealth mode, they will aggro me. So as you can see, one of them technically just hit me with the hitbox, but they didn't aggro me. So I'm actually not using a weight drake. I'm actually using a standard melee rock drake here. But it's the same principle. And this comes down to how you level up your rock drake. Most people put all their points into a new rock drake into weight to use them for carrying stuff around. But ideally what you want to do is do maybe 2,000 points into weight, and then maybe do 1,500. If you can do a little bit more than that into stamina, that'd be sweet. Because what you want to do is you want to stay in stealth mode while you're gathering, and then find a location where there's not that many rock drakes nearby you to gather stealth mode. So what I'm going to do is, let's assume I'm using a weight drake, and I really just want to gather black pearls. So I'm going to go into stealth mode. I have plenty of time, and I'm going to gather from the rock drake without dismounting, and I'm grabbing black pearls. So long as you don't hit any dino while you're gathering, and you don't dismount nearby another dino, you will be more than fine. Same thing if you're like early game, you have a rock drag. Oh my god, I need oil because oil really is really hard to get in operation. And well, in this case, I don't have a pickaxe with me, but I really just want oil. And you just start harvesting some with your pickaxe. Like I said here in the example, I'm only using a hatchet, but you get what I mean, right? And a whole area of the radiation zone where the rock thickness are, and you can guide yourself by this large bone giga. If I raise my gamma, here's where you can gather black pearls. You can also go on the Wikipedia, see where all the black pearl locations are for an arc. It's pretty much this whole area. This whole area covering current bottom of the world. So I'm actually gonna get out of stealth mode really quickly, and so I can gather more stuff, right? And that's pretty much what you want to do. You can gather as many black pearls as you like. You can with a rock drake early game, and for black pearls in oil really early game, as long as you remain in stealth mode on your rock drake. And assuming you make the mistake of getting out of stealth mode or dismount, immediately just go away and try to de-aggro, wait a couple minutes, come back and redo the task again. Alright guys, now I'm gonna cover bases. I'm gonna take a little bit more time explaining bases because a lot of people have seen me use bases as to why I use them, why I like them, and tips with bass and stuff like that. And bass is probably one of the most frustrating creatures in the game. I I actually find them very frustrating. And Basilisk also what I consider probably the most powerful defensive creature in the game, right? Because one single Basilisk has the potential to stop a whole racer Parasaur push, a whole line of land dinosaurs from pushing into your base, right? That's how powerful they are. And also seem to be probably the only person in the PCR community that seems to use them. So it's like even more frustrated when I seem to be the only one using them. But I can understand the frustration because basilisks rely on the world geometry, and it was stated by the depths long time ago. And so what they mean it relies on world geometry is that a basilisk moves based on the world geometry. As you can see, it just how the terrain and the structures are placed, and it will move according to that. So because of that, its head aims according to world geometry. So if its head is not facing the right direction, the aim accuracy will actually you end up shooting yourself, right? So it's such a situation where you're like trying to fight, uh, you're trying to shoot something, and you're trying to aim the right way. You're trying to aim, let's say, you're trying to aim here, but the Bassi shoots a whole different direction. It's not 100% accurate. Let's see if we can find a terrain like this, right? So here in a situation where the Bassi head is facing down, right? And I want to shoot this way, and the Bassi shoots the whole opposite way because the head relies on the world geometry. So instead of like the head facing forward where your character is facing, the head is actually facing different direction. And what's what makes Bassis very frustrating. You want, in order for them to work properly, you want them to be on a flat terrain, right? And there's not that many maps in the game where everything is flat, like the island. There's like really hard to find places where it's flat. Scorched Earth, for example. Although most bases in Scorched Earth are now on the open desert, so there's a lot of room for Bassis to play there. So if the head is in kind of flat terrain, the accuracy will be a lot better, right? So this is why a lot of times you see players using when they try to use Bassis, they end up killing themselves or trimates. So in situation, the best way to use a Basilisk is to create flat terrain, and by doing so, If you watch some of my streams when I use Basilisk, I create flat terrain in the form of ramps. So here's like a standard ramp, uh, and the way it works, you force the Bassie's head to be facing the direction your character is facing. So here in this case, my Basilisk head is facing forward. So now my accuracy has highly improved because I don't have to rely on the world geometry. The world geometry here is the ceilings. So now my accuracy is, now that my aim is a lot more accurate. And this is, and also what a Bassi ramp creates, it creates high ground between you and your enemy. So if my Bassi is on ground level, that means that players above me or players who are ground level can actually shoot me and snipe me up the Bassi. And I had a lot of situations where a sniper can come in and shoot me up the Bassi if I'm like on the ground, right? But if you create high ground between you and your enemy, for example, then it's a lot harder for someone to snipe me off the Basilisk if they're looking at me from this direction. You only really see the Bassi, and a lot of times this will give you a huge advantage when you're using the Basilisk. And the taller your ramp, the harder for someone is to snipe you out of it. So that, not only that, it gives you a lot of field of view of what's going on around you, and you can focus specific targets. Now, ways which I like to build my Bassies, I actually like to do the 20k HP, 500 damage. I always feel like anything above 500 damage is good enough. Like, you don't need anything above 500 damage because most players like to run with 300 HP, 320 or less than that, and so if you hit someone with a Bassi, they will most likely die. But I like the 500 damage because I can also do damage to racers, and the more damage do to a racer, the quicker they will have to pull back. At the same time, I like them to kill about 20k HP and a really good saddle. You really don't want to use a primitive saddle. Like if you can afford to clone a Bassi, which is around 70 to 100 element, then you can definitely afford a good saddle, right? So usually on official servers, I like to run with 100 upper saddles or a cap saddle, but usually 100, maybe 80. That's like as far as I can go with a Bassi, like my personal Bassies for raids, because that allows me to use even if my Bassi gets focused by a lot of players, it allows me to be out there in the battlefield a lot longer compared to if I had a primitive saddle. Now, Bassies are, there's not that many things that you can do with a Bassi besides just shooting. Besides the range attack, which pretty much is probably the most OP thing as a defensive creature. The only thing you can do is to bury, and when you burrow, there's nothing else you can do besides sometimes when a flyer comes to you, you can like time your burrow, and they can grab you out of the Bassi. But also sometimes, like rare situations, you can use the Bassi to chase players, and if you use the Bassi while it's burrow, you can get as close as turrets, and you can even do damage to creatures while you burrow. You can also use, I like to use a spyglass when I'm using a Bassi. That way I can be a lot more accurate when I'm firing a shot. If I'm trying to snipe someone on a specific location, I can see better where they are, especially trying to like hit targets on the like players on the ground compared to dinosaurs. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed the video, and don't forget to subscribe. If you have any suggestions or you have any questions, don't forget to leave a message in the comments below, and I'll see you guys next time.